Welcome to Uniting the Cults, another episode of Why is Everybody Stupid? This one's about what if I'm wrong about Islam? Let's consider the question and what is the proper response. I'm talking about this because a lot of people come into the ex-Muslim subreddit and they're freaking out about the possibility that hell exists and that they're going to hell. And the sentence or question that is oftentimes mixed in with their freak out mode is, what if I'm wrong about Islam, or what if Islam is true, or something like that. So let's get started here. So how does it happen? People need to understand that their mind, they need to understand, have some sort of model about their mind. Your mind is full of a bunch of ideas. You didn't put them all there, meaning that, when you were very young, before you learned how to think critically, people were installing ideas in your head, in effect. It's not exactly like that. You still had to put it in there. It's not like installing Microsoft Office on your computer. But it is kind of like that because, when you're 2 years old, you don't have the critical capacity to figure out why the stuff people are telling you about Islam makes no sense. So let's try to put this question in context. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. So there's triggers in your head. Certain things trigger other things. Sometimes it can be something like, just as an example, my mother's mother died, and afterwards, anytime my mother would smell her mother's perfume, she would cry. So some sense data would come to my mother's, nose, and then to her brain, and then to her mind, and there would be an interpretation that would connect to memory of her mom, and then that would trigger another thought or emotion, or both, and it would lead to something that is a sad thought that she's having, and she would cry. In this case, I'm not really sure what's causing people, what's the initial trigger. Well, I can guess. It's when people are shouting this shit at you, or even if, like, you're living somewhere in a Muslim majority country and you hear the adhan or something, and that's 5 times a day. These are all these sense data that's coming to you, and that in your brain, in your mind, is triggering this thought: what if Islam is true? And so and then what happens after that is another trigger, which is the fear of hell response. So, and what people need to do is to be able to think critically about this question, since it's the question that keeps popping in their head. And it's clear they don't have a good answer to it. They don't know how to reply to this. If they did, they wouldn't be off on a tangent of freaking out with fear. Instead, they would have those critical thoughts every time they have this question. So here's a line of thought you can have instead of freaking out with fear. And I want to explain this by showing another example that doesn't use the word Islam or the concept of Islam. And to be clear, this is partly to help your mind think about this question without having the Islam triggering in your brain. So let's try this question on the concept of 1 plus 1 equals 2. What if you're wrong about 1 plus 1 equals 2? What does that mean? What does it imply? That means you would have to be wrong about all of the ideas that connect to the idea that 1 plus 1 equals 2. And that's like millions of ideas. And that means that the question, what if I'm wrong about 1 plus 1 equals 2, is like asking, what if I'm wrong about 1 plus 1 equals 2 and all of the millions of ideas that connect with 1 plus 1 equals 2? In other words, for you to reject the idea that 1 plus 1 equals 2, you must also have decisive counter-arguments for each of the millions of ideas that connect to 1 plus 1 equals 2. So now let's put the Islam idea back in there. For you to adopt Islam again, you should have decisive counter-arguments, meaning you believe in them, not just other people believe in them. I mean, you believe these counter-arguments. You should have decisive counter-arguments for each of the criticisms that you currently have about Islam. So let's suppose you know 1,000 flaws in Islam. For you to readopt Islam, you should now believe every one of those flaws is incorrect. It's not a flaw. You were wrong. All 1,000 of them. And you don't have that. And the people that are freaking out about hell, they're making this basic mistake of not even thinking about criticism and the flaws of Islam. It's just ignoring them. It's like saying, what if I'm wrong about Islam and all the damn flaws that I've known somehow? How? That isn't, you need to list them, every single one. That is what you would do in any scientific field. And why the hell are we doing it if it's not scientific? The scientific approach is the only method that we know of to find the truth. There's no other one. If there is another one, you need to explain it. Why don't you teach us? Come teach the world what is this better method than the scientific approach. So if you agree with me so far, now consider that you need to make this a habit. You need to make it a trigger and make a new trigger to replace the old trigger. The old trigger connected the question, what if I'm wrong about Islam, to a fear reaction. The new trigger will connect the question, what if I'm wrong about Islam, to another idea, which is, oh, that means I need to be convinced that I'm wrong about all the criticisms I currently have about Islam. And if you're still interested in this line of thinking at this point, then go ahead and review all your criticisms. Every single one. That will consume so much time that you'll fall asleep and you won't be thinking about this anymore until the next time, in which case you should go through this whole process again to train your mind. Somebody says you don't have to know the right answer to know the wrong answer. Simple as that. That is true. In this case, I prefer the scientific method. One solid proof against it suffice to make the hypothesis invalid. That is what I'm explaining. This person is confused. So let's see. I guess I want to explain one more thing that I learned from another person in this subreddit. Quran is the perfect truth, I think his name is, his username or her. He made a really good point about good and evil. And first, let me explain an idea that I already knew. I remember explaining to him after he explained his idea that good people stick with each other, evil people backstab each other, and they don't stick with each other. So if somebody's thinking, I will remain a Muslim on the off chance that Allah is real, so I avoid hell, that logic doesn't work, because if you recognize Allah is evil, now you need to bring into question that thing I just said. Good people stick with each other. Evil people backstab each other. Allah will backstab you. You could go to hell and not go to heaven. Remember, he lied about everything else. So you thinking that he's truthful about if you are a Muslim, then you don't go to hell. You're fooling yourself. I hope I explained that well. If not, if you're confused by what I said, please comment in the on this video, and I'll try to explain further, and maybe I'll make another video about this, because it works better if there's some writing, and there wasn't any for this little thing. All right, that's it for this one.